This road is the real path. It is never easy and never clear, but always entertaining. This journey has not been a seated event, as Bridgette walks, runs, stumbles, carries, digs, drags, laughs, fights, sings, prays, dances, kicks, screams, and oftentimes falls.
Hey everybody, it's Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show, and I am your hostess with the mostest today. You are listening to Revolution Radio, and you can go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and you can look at the Support Us. Give us a one-time donation would be super great at this point in time. Right now we're making a big transition. Our, captain of our ship passed over about a month ago, and we are going to continue his dream and also to keep creating Freedom Radio so that we can talk about the things that we want to talk about, and we can have important discussions and bring education. So please, 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 I even donated this month. So yeah, so hit the donate, help us in any way that you can to keep us rolling. And while we make the transition, we're in the great transition. And so we have a lot of really exciting things that are coming in and going to be happening. And we're just rallying the Revolution Radio troops, and we're just going to move forward. So pretty excited about that. Also, while you're at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, you can click on schedule A, scroll down the B with the flower, click on that, and you'll find information about my show, links, and things like that. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me that way. And then one last push. I am doing a shamanism energy healing course for classes. And if you're interested in learning these tools, they were taught to me by one of my teachers 28 years ago, a Lakota Sioux medicine woman, and I'm not going to give her name because I don't have permission for that. And they are specific healing methods that she taught me and that I have developed over 28 years. And so I want to be able to start teaching people. So if you're interested in taking an energy medicine tool class to learn tools, then please go to coe-llc.com. I'm sure that link is on my Revolution Radio back page, and then look for a page called Screening and Netting or Energy Healing Course. And I think I'm going to be starting that like December 5th is I think the date. Okay, anyway. Now, last time I had this person on, the next day I was immediately pulled into AM's, our new, head manager of the network's roundtable the next day, because he had all these people in his roundtable room that wanted to talk about my guest and about the show, and they just thought it was just so great. So I have been putting it out a little bit extra and hinting to the fact that I was having this person back on, because I know a lot of you really wanted to hear from him again. So with that, I'm going to introduce my guest. And so I want to make sure and pronounce it correctly. So it's Taansen Fairmont, right?
Taansen, yes. Hi.
Okay.
Hi.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking to him again today. And we are going to go into the heavy, spiritual stuff too, which a lot of people really liked. But I thought maybe the beginning of the show, since last time we didn't really get to talk about his business, that maybe he could, in the beginning of the show, talk about trust And then we'll go into the duty, and then, we'll come out the other side and maybe talk about debt elimination. Would you like to talk about it?
Everyone, we are very grateful to be together today. This is Taansen Fairmont, and thank you, Bridgette. You are definitely the mostest, and we had a lot of fun last time. We'll have some more fun today. This time we'll focus a bit more on what exactly practically everyone can take home. And we're talking about creating a new world, and part of that involves being free from the wheels of the enslavement machine that the old paradigm created. And part of that enslavement was, of course, taxation. Part of it was debt. Part of it was social engineering, media, chemtrails, mind control, all of those things that have enslaving influences. And the new age that is dawning is all about freedom, spiritual freedom, philosophical freedom, educational freedom, medical freedom, financial freedom, freedom in one's mind, one's heart, one's feeling area. So all of this is about freeing oneself. We're going to talk about several of these types of freedom. And amongst the freedom technology, techniques out there, methods, there are hundreds, there are thousands. I have, over the last 30 years, researched and examined and tried many, many, many of them. I've been full-time in this field. I've spoken at seminars about it. I've known hundreds of the best teachers and coaches. I've seen the UCC-based freedom technologies. I've seen asset protection methodologies. I've seen what fails and I've seen what works. And out of them all, I like to share the creme de la creme, the best, with my friends. And those few best things are what we will be talking about today. The trust is one thing that Bridgette mentioned. The debt elimination is the other, because that frees people from the two wheels of the enslavement machine, debts and taxes, and also encroachments from criminals or from ex-spouses or from enemies or from anyone who would take what you have earned and what you have. There are many approaches to asset protection. Many people don't understand what irrevocable means and why it should be instituted in one's asset protection. Some people are into sole corporations. Some people are into statutory entities such as LLCs, corporations. First of all, if anyone is not from the United States on this show today, please know that the House of Freedom International Natural Law Trust works worldwide. That's why we call it international. It is sovereign. It is not subject to the jurisdiction of any particular government. It has existed successfully with a 100% success rate for at least 5 decades, several generations that we know of, and previous to that, it has been around for centuries in various other forms. But it's been evolving, and today it's a state-of-the-art instrument which allows one to transfer one's commerce into it, into the name of it. That means income, salary if you're an employee, and if you work for a small company where the boss is cooperative and you propose that you would like to be paid via the trust rather than your personal name, and if he's willing, he or she, you can be paid that way. That way all of your income is sheltered. And if you have investments, those investments can be titled into the trust, and then all the investment income can go to the trust. If you have real estate, the rental income from that real estate can be titled to the trust. If you have a business or if you have a service that you provide, the payments, for example, Bridgette, you mentioned your energy healing. Payments to you for energy healing or payments to anyone for a service you provide could be made payable to your trust rather than to your personal name. If you own a business, the business could be in a sole proprietorship, it could be in an LLC, it could be in a corporation, it could be in your personal name. If you use a House of Freedom International Natural Law Trust and make the payments to the business payable to the trust then can take care of the bills, and it is a shelter. It is a invincible instrument of asset protection. It's not only non-taxable, but it's also non-reportable, which is one of the best things about it. It is private. It is not publicly posted. It's not attorney created. It's not state registered. And most of its pages are never given to any agency or institution. So it does get a government number in most countries for banking purposes only, not for filing tax returns. In England, no number is necessary. In England, you can walk it into a bank and they'll just open the account based on ID. Over here in the U.S. and Canada and most other countries, it gets its own EIN or tax ID number, and that's okay. And that's not to be a concern for anyone because we have not had a single problem as long as it's operated correctly. There have been no problems. And we tend to attract really nice clients, peaceful people who are not out there committing things that get people in trouble. So we tend to attract those who are interested in just simply living their lives quietly and peacefully and harmoniously, and use the trust for protecting from the dangers that exist around us, and that's the way it should be used. It's also a perfect financial planning tool, ideal for avoiding probate, passing on the assets that you've accumulated over a lifetime to your heirs seamlessly, and know that you are now utilizing the kind of technology that the elite traditionally used, the Warburgs, the Rockefellers, the Kennedys, the Mellons, Carnegies, the Hunt brothers, and other families have used these kinds of instruments for generations. The Massachusetts Trust, it used to be called, and there have been many changes, many evolutions, many refinements since then. We have one of the best trust writers on the planet, based in Hawaii, and he has refined it over the years. He keeps studying the books. We've had not a single problem. We've had no one lose any assets from the trust due to its design or due to penetration, and we've never had it be invalidated. In fact, it cannot be invalidated. So that's what we mean by a 100% success rate. I personally have been using them since the early 90s, and to this day, operate everything through them. We don't even need IBCs, International Business Corporations, or offshore trusts. Why would we need that? I have found, I've done the offshore thing, and I found there can be just as many problems in loss of assets offshore as there can be onshore, and many times more so. Whereas this trust can be established in any country in the world, and a bank account can be opened in any country in the world, so it can operate anywhere, and therefore why would one need an instrument, an entity that is subject to the jurisdiction, even if it's a friendly jurisdiction, anywhere in the world? One can use this sovereign trust, and this trust then is respected in the community where it is established, and it operates under the universal right to enter into private contract between two parties. That is affirmed in the U.S. Supreme Court cases, and it's also respected in countries worldwide. Everyone has the right to enter into private contract between each other without the interference of any government. That's what this trust is. So setting one of these up is a very good thing to do for one's family, for one's business, for one's asset protection, and one doesn't have to be wealthy, okay? It's ideal for wealthy people, but it's also very, very possible and very recommended for the middle class. Anyone who has anything to protect at all can use this much more efficiently. Even our employees at Brilliance and Commerce, where we create the trust, we don't call them employees, we call them independent contractors, and we pay them through their trusts. So their trusts take care of them, and we pay the trust. And so these are not, you would say, financially wealthy people, but they're people who have understood the wisdom of using this kind of an instrument for asset protection. For those who have credit card debts and those who have other types of student loans and unsecured debts, we can talk about the number one best way to cancel those, Bridgette, whenever you're ready, unless you want to go into the trust more.
It's up to you. I wanted to check, maybe leave the debt stuff to the end.
Okay.
like do like a Oreo. We do the trust on the front and then the big white part for a long time, which is going to be the icing on top, the spiritual stuff, and then do the dead at the end, the other part of the brown cookie. the solid worlds can be the cookie, the hard cookie.
Okay. We'll make it sweet today.
Yeah. So do you have anything else that you want to add about the trust? And we have a personal link for you, and that link for you is going to be takeanewroad.com. if you want to go and you want to start investigating all of this work and information on the websites about that work in case you need a trust or debt elimination.
Excellent. As to what's more, there's endlessly more. Of course, there's lots and lots of questions in individual situations, but I'll let you suggest what direction you would like to take.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was something that, kind of popped up in my radar. So you have an interesting component in your energy field, and it took me a while to notice it from our first interaction. And you have something that most people, I think, that move out of the system in the boxes and just don't have. I think most people just don't have this component. They haven't actually put it together, figured it out, and so it's not in their energetic field. And what it is, it's prosperity and abundance. So after our first call and talk about a lot of things, it brought up just different kinds of key factors energetically, kind of in my field, kind of about, where I'm still maybe hooked into post-traumatic stress disorder, and that places that I'm still defending myself, which is a lack. And then I also started really having a huge amount of energy around empathy, but the type of empathy that I was using was that, I would help you based on I knew exactly what you need before you needed it. And so it was all about this need and lack. So it brought me back to this lack. It kept going back to this lack. So the last 2 weeks has been really epic. And I have to tell you, before you're coming back on this show, the whole world that surrounds me actually started going crazy. All the people in it, major drama. I mean, epic drama that you couldn't even begin to wrap your head around to try to distract me. Actually, there was so much drama over the last 24 hours. I didn't sleep. And there was almost this possibility where I was not going to even be able to do my show today. That's how severe it was.
Wow.
So I kept energetically having to kind of hold it together, because I realized this whole energy field, and even people who are practicing sovereignty and doing a lot of this stuff that are in my life, just the energy of me moving out of this lack doesn't mean that I can't be compassionate, but I don't want to be, empathetic to the point where I surrender everything in my energy field to give you what you need, when you might not even be able to do it on your own. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So there was all this crazy stuff that started coming up. And so since I didn't sleep all night, I was thinking about, when some of this started and then how it's been amping up. And it's like a bookend. The first time you came on my show, and then really started to gain traction in the last 2 weeks, and then, went into fifth gear, 250 on the highway last night.
I would say to everyone listening that this is symbolic of what's going on nationally and globally, and everyone else may be going through their own versions of this. There's a lot of acceleration, as you know, of change and transformation going on the planet right now.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, it was mostly in the financial sector.
Yes, but it was the breaking out of the shell of poverty mentality and opening up prosperity consciousness.
Yep. and also getting refocused and redirected and just a lot of other things. So it's been good. And I've had to kind of stand up against the energy field and some of these dynamics that are going on, and just, keep reminding them that, I'm so glad that this is how you're reflecting, but I'm not going to be hooked into it. I'm just going to keep going.
Beautiful.
And then
Congratulations.
Yeah, and just watching the chaos. And just,
thank you for holding the energy and hanging in there with us.
Yeah, I know. I'm super excited. But I thought it was a really interesting thing, because I'm always finding different things in people's energy fields. And it's rare. It's actually a rarity that somebody have this kind of prosperity, abundance in their energy field, and not only doing it for work. So by people just being in close proximity to you, you can help to activate these energies in people.
Yes, thank you. That's a beautiful recognition. And yes, it's a great gift for mankind, because I have a book called Sovereignty Consciousness, and it's going to be incorporated into a new book called Cosmic Renaissance, coming out maybe next year, we'll see, in which, among other things, there's a chapter called The Dawn of Golden Age Prosperity. And it really gives the essence of prosperity consciousness. And let me start from the outer aspect. The study that Buckminster Fuller did in the 70s, and those who are younger may not be as familiar, but he was the one over 30 that the younger people trusted back in the 60s and 70s. And he had some 48 PhDs. He's the inventor of the geodesic dome and a lot of other inventions. He gave some 300 lectures a year, traveled all the time to universities, very popular. And he was a man who gave a lot of wisdom about transforming the earth away from what he called weaponry and into livingry, meaning we have enough wealth on this planet. We don't need war. We don't need conflict. We can have enough. We can provide for everyone comfortably and in dignity. So he did a simple calculation. He added up all the wealth in the world, all the money in all the banks and all the goods and services in the marketplace, and what their dollar value would be, and came up with a single dollar figure. And then he just divided that figure by the world's population. And what it indicated was that if the wealth in the world was evenly divided, every last man, woman, and child would be a multimillionaire. And that was back in the 70s. So it just illustrates that there's no shortage of supply. And it's not to advocate a socialistic redistribution forced, against people's will, and especially the communistic style, which, concentrates it into the hands of the state. Instead, it just illustrates that this illusion of scarcity is just a mirage. And a lot of it is foisted by the fake, funny money system. When you create money out of thin air, such as the so-called U.S. dollar does, the only way they can make it really valuable is by creating the illusion of scarcity. If it were just in tremendous abundance, they fear that there would be not enough perception of value. But as world consciousness continues to rise, as the baseline level of world consciousness rises, more and more people are realizing the falsity of that paradigm and entering into prosperity consciousness, where wealth is not something that is used to lord it over other people anymore. It's not used as a status symbol. It's not used for ego. It's not used just for reckless indulgence, and it's not used for weapons and bombs and destruction. Rather, it's used for life-supporting influences. It's used for feeding people the nourishment that they need. It's used for housing. It's used for clothing, education, medicine. It's used for all the good things. And that's as it should be. There's a saying in Sanskrit, Kriya Siddhi Sattva Bhavati No Prakarni, and it basically means the means gather around sattva. Sattva is that word that represents the higher dimensions, the higher frequencies out of which the power of the universe emanates. And another way of saying is that success of action comes from sattva and not from means. To illustrate in a visual way what that means is, imagine when you were a child, did you ever do that experiment in science class where you had a piece of paper and you sprinkled iron filings on it?
No, I never. I grew up in a one-horse town. So
Okay.
probably didn't do that experiment.
Okay. Well,
okay.
Imagine if you have iron filings and you sprinkle them on a piece of paper and hold that piece of paper and you perhaps jiggle it a little bit. What's going to happen? They're kind of going to be in a chaos, aren't they?
Yeah. Hey, can we just have you turn your volume down just a little bit?
Yes. How's that?
Oh, awesome. Perfect. Thank you. Go, continue, please.
All right. And so now imagine bringing a magnet up underneath the piece of paper. What is going to happen is the iron filings are going to suddenly go into a beautiful pattern, very harmonious, very coherent, very orderly. So sattva is that power in creation, that subtle frequency or range of frequencies. It's the higher heavens. And it's within us, that part of us that has the love, that has the light. So that influence within each of us and throughout the universe is the influence of creativity. And as that grows, automatically everything harmonizes around us. We repel what isn't good and we attract what is good. So that's the essence of creating what we want around us automatically without relying too much on belief, although it does help to adopt a more positive outlook in thinking. It helps, but it's not the essence of it. The essence is to create that goodwill, that love, that light as a physical reality. So yes, prosperity consciousness and the reorientation of administration on this planet towards the proper use of power, such that we are heading to a world where power is peaceful and peace is powerful. And that is why we favor freedom. We favor liberation from financial debt. We favor freedom from extortions and forced taxation. If it's voluntary taxation, truly voluntary, that's fine. Suppose you want to support the local community. But most people don't realize that the federal tax does not support anything. This was admitted by President Reagan when he was in office in 1983, when he was asked, where does the income tax money go? And he said, 100% of it is gone, spent on payments to the federal debt before one nickel is spent on the services that taxpayers expect from government. So this has been around for decades, this knowledge. It's nothing new. The income tax goes to an international crime syndicate. It does not go to build bridges or hospitals or schools. And that's why, for many people, it is a moral decision to withdraw from it. And one can do that on the individual level, but that's not required to benefit from the trust. The trust can provide an easy way to just simply put all of one's commerce, all of one's exchange, all of one's income and assets and activity into the name of the trust without having to bother with withdrawing individually from the tax system unless one already wishes to do that or has done that. The trust is something that can be set up in 24 hours. You give it your own name. We are also one of the only organizations in the world that allows people to have a choice of trustee. That means you can be your own trustee. You can choose your trustee. And you can choose your trustee among friends, someone you trust. And if you don't want to have the responsibility of being the trustee and you don't know anyone you want to trust as the trustee, then the third choice is we can provide a recommended professional trustee. But we would prefer, for most people, either to be the trustee or choose the trustee among your friends, because then you feel most comfortable in that arrangement. Let's talk about briefly why it's irrevocable. People think, oh, irrevocable means I put my assets into it and I can't get them back. That's right. Guess what Rockefeller said? Own nothing and control everything. Own nothing and control everything. So you want your assets back? Okay, make it revocable. Then guess what? Someone comes against you with a court judgment. You say, I don't have it. It's in the trust. They said, fine, it's a revocable trust. We order you to get the assets back, and you will have to do so. You will have to make the trust, cough it up, and give those assets back. So that's not called asset protection. That's called a farce. But if it's irrevocable, that means you can tell the people who are attacking you, I don't have it. It's not in my name. I can't get it back. And it's, an irrevocable entity. It's irrevocably transferred to that entity. It's a separate legal entity with a separate legal number, and it does not have those. It doesn't have the liability to satisfy that judgment. So the value of irrevocable is that it's bulletproof asset protection. That entity, the trust, can still take care of the one who set it up through various means. And the details of that we can get into some other time, but suffice it to say that one can still benefit from the trust, but just not through ownership. It's the ownership that one must remove in order to make the assets protected. Let it be known, too, that we have an affiliate system, those who know people who would like such things, or people who have clientele, for example, accountants, lawyers, people that have networks. You are welcome to be an affiliate with us and refer people. And we enjoy a two-tiered affiliate system that is working very, very well. I think you mentioned, Bridgette, that the web URL, in case people missed it, is takeanewroad.com. takeanewroad.com is where you will see all the information about this.
Yes. Hey, so I have a question for you. So what do you think, when you look out there in the public and you talk to people and you kind of get a feel for what's going on out there, what do you think is the number one obstacle for people, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, in having abundance?
It's twofold. It depends on the individual. It's inner and outer. For many people, it is lack of sufficient consciousness, which generates sattva, that power that I was talking about, the attracting power. And for others, it's simply the lack of the right vehicle. That's more of the outer reason. For me, it was, for many years, it was because I didn't come from a wealthy family. I came from a nice middle-class family. But it took a long time for me to start generating wealth because I was looking for the right vehicle, the right business, the right source of wealth. And so for many people who already have a good degree of prosperity consciousness, that's their reason. They just haven't found the way to do it. But those who have had their feet on the ground and have had smarts entrepreneurially, many people have some business education or some entrepreneurial experience. Maybe they grew up in an entrepreneurial family, so they already understand retail sales and or investments, but they still are having problems with maintaining, keeping and making and maintaining their prosperity. And that's usually more due to internal problems between their ears. And that's as real as a cause as anything else, as you know. You can have all the vehicles in the world, all the best circumstances and all the best information and opportunity, but if you don't have the coherent harmony-generating consciousness, you're just going to make a mess of things. That's why I think a lot of the universities are missing something. You know what the word university means? Unity in diversity. But most universities have lost the unity. They're just in the diversity. So you go to the big schools that are famous, the big famous names, and you can get your MBA, So you end up with a lot of information. But if you haven't taken care of the unity within yourself, and I'm not talking about a religion necessarily, I'm not necessarily talking about a belief system. I'm talking about a state of awareness, an actual physical state that is free from stress, that is free from insomnia, that is free from the need for being over-caffeinated, free from these influences of discord and disharmony, where one has to, go to bed late, get up early, miss sleep, then take lots of coffee, and then run, and go, and push the nervous system to its limit, and never get peace, never get samadhi, never get pure consciousness, then that tends to break down the mental matrix. And no matter how much education and information you may have, things are still not going to go well. For those who have a way to go into deep awareness and spend time minimizing drugs and stimulants, eat well, take sattvic, which means healthy, nourishing, light food and drink, avoid toxic substances as much as possible. I'm not talking about going to the extreme, but I'm just talking about reasonable precautions, and giving oneself enough rest, get enough sleep, wake up with an opportunity to go into deep meditation and spend some time in that every day and let the awareness rest in that. Let the awareness open to the infinite. Then it suddenly supplements the three states, the waking, dreaming, and sleeping, with a fourth state. And that fourth state, as a routine every day, begins nourishing the nervous system, very much like watering the roots of the tree. And when you're talking about why do many people have blocks to prosperity, that's like blocks to the fruit appearing on the tree. Usually the fruit doesn't appear because the tree didn't get enough nourishment, or it didn't get enough sunlight, or it's too freezing cold, or it's too blazing hot. So if the tree has no extremes, it's not exposed to extremes, and it does have the fertilizer, the soil, the water, and the sunlight, most likely it's going to be fine, and it's going to bear fruit.
Yeah, well, that's how I correlate everything spiritually these days. I've and maybe also too, I went back to school to study Steiner's lectures formally, so that also has played into a lot of, I think, the shift, the financial abundance shift too.
Rudolf Steiner was a great enlightened being who came out with volumes and volumes of amazing wisdom. Yes.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. Yeah, so I'm in several courses now and working on a lot of his work, going back and restudying, the foundations of biodynamics and all of that. And it's kind of interesting having done all the hands-on part and understanding some of the ideas and philosophies, but going back to actually read the work in the language that it was created, it just blows your lid off.
Bridgette, one of my favorite fruit juices is mango juice from Lakewood brand, and it's biodynamic.
Yeah, it has the Demeter certification on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you
Guess
have
what?
Soil which is enriched with energy and with minerals, and so the mangoes are much richer and tastier and more, nourishing.
Yeah, and the biodynamics principles based on a lot of the spiritual science work that Steiner did, and we connect the cosmos with all things, it's all connected. The below, the surface, and the cosmos all kind of come together through concepts and preparations and times of years and, calendars. And it's just kind of, the work is just really mind-blowing once you get in there and you start to learn the actual terms and words that he, actually said, and then breaking that apart and looking at the development of him as a person. And because he was brilliant, educated, but he also, his big thing was nutrient. And he was a nutritionalist and a plant medicine, and he taught doctors. He tried to go into medicine and retrain them. He actually has a program that for medical doctors to go through in Europe, anthroposophy medicine, that people.
Well, as much as I advocate going into the fourth state and using deep meditation, I also advocate a good, healthy diet. I heard a story about a school, I think it was in Illinois some years ago, where the children were disobedient and they had bad grades and they were getting into violence and fights, and there was all kinds of problems. And the school decided to change the school lunch. Instead of junk food, they suddenly started bringing in really healthy, good tasting, nutritious foods. And guess what? The children became transformed. Their behavior improved, they quieted down, their grades started going up, they got along with each other better, they were happier, everything improved.
Yeah, and he has a quote. It goes something, I have it on my email. When I return emails, it says something like, if you continue to eat from unhealthy soil, you will be trapped in the prison of your body.
Yes.
And so I always tell people, in order to actually, we also know that food, especially green leafy food, healthy right out of the soil, has a lot of DMT in it, which is a natural connector to the cosmos, if you will, right? Mm. Some people call the DMT molecule the God doorway, the doorway to God. So if you're eating healthy and you're getting this DMT into your brain, you have receptors for it. It's a natural occurring thing the body needs and wants and desires. It actually helps to connect you, connect you up as well. Yeah, no, I'm a huge advocate with diet. Okay, so, and I think, that helps to create abundance too, especially when people start to grow it. I built a lot of backyard grows for people, kind of with as many biodynamic principles as possible in the past, and then help them to utilize them for seasons and then do biodynamic composting and stuff like that. Always told people that you should try to eat at least 20%, 20 to 25% annually of food that you grow that has a relationship to the sun, that has a relationship to the water and the soil and the microbes. And that will help a lot too, because there's silent nutrition that most people don't know about. Even people who are nutritionalists don't understand it. And that's the microbial mass that grows in the plant, on the plant, and that's the relationship to all the different minerals and whatever other plants that are growing near that plant. And then you also have the sunlight and the water in the plant. And that sunlight, for us to be light, we need to ingest sunlight. And fresh plants that you cut that day. Even in your own backyard, you can grow a lot of green leafy plants in boxes, especially cold frames. You could grow a ton of leafy mass in a couple cold frames in your backyard. You'd be shocked. But then you're eating light, and so then your cells are becoming light. So anyway, sorry about that tangent, but kind of a soil plant nut.
That's a tasty tangent.
It is a tasty tangent. Okay, so we have about, 12 minutes or so left in this hour. So do you want to talk about, I know people were kind of blown away with some of the stuff that you talked about with TM back in the days. I had people commenting, especially about when you went to, I believe it was Iraq, and you were brought in to meditate there.
Iran,
yeah. Do you want to talk about some more of those kinds of adventures? Because I know people really love those.
Okay, if you go into deep meditation, you will start reconnecting with your own source. Scientific research has shown that if one goes deep enough in a group of people, and that the entire group is doing that, crime rates will go down, war violence will decrease. So this has been statistically measured by scientists. And the only organization that has sponsored this research, to my knowledge, is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who revived an ancient tradition that had kind of fallen into obscurity in the Dark Ages. And in the mid-20th century, he brought it back out. He came out of the Himalayas and he said, this is the time in history we are moving in a transition from a dark age to a golden age, an age of enlightenment. 20th century was the most violent century in history. I mean, more people were killed and there was more suffering, and it was just, at the same time, good was coming out too. And world consciousness was rising. karma was being cleansed, and techniques like this were being revived. And so it means that, let's say you have a town like Boulder, Colorado, or Mill Valley, California, or some of the towns in the eastern, like Asheville, North Carolina. And I think it was 1974, the first study of the 1% effect was published, in which they had 12 control cities and 12 test cities. And in the control cities, the crime was going up. These were similar to the demographics of the cities where 1% of the population began transcendental meditation. In those cities, the crime rate, which previously was going up, started going down around the time that the 1% was achieved. If you magnetize 1% of a bar of iron, the rest of the bar of iron begins to get magnetized. If you crystallize 1% of a chemical solution, the rest of the solution will automatically get crystallized. There's the principle of the 100th monkey. I won't go into the 100th monkey, for many people already understand it. You know what it is. If you don't know, Google it, the 100th monkey phenomenon. But basically, it's the principle that a small group influences the whole. And it struck a lot of the scientists, the newcomers to this, as strange. It was presented to the Journal of Conflict Resolution at Yale University in the mid-'80s. Now, if you could identify a dark cabal university on this planet, what would it be? You have the Skull and Bones secret society there. I mean, it graduated Bush. It graduated a lot of the creators of wars. So if you could convince Yale, you could convince anybody, right? The Journal of Conflict Resolution is a prestigious journal that is peer-reviewed, and it's very difficult to get published in. A study was presented to them showing, I think it was in Israel or Lebanon or somewhere, where there had been war going on, and transcendental meditators went in and did not only the basic meditation, but the advanced Patanjali's Yoga Sutras techniques, which includes yogic flying. That means the body lifting up off the cushion for a few seconds and coming down. This accelerates and amplifies the super radiance being generated from the quantum field, from the unified field. Well, the violence went down. And the story you are referring to is when I was flown to Iran. Some wealthy people put the money together. Maharishi conceived the idea, and he said, there are trouble spots around the world. We'd like our advanced meditators to go to these areas, and we don't go sightseeing. We don't, go around talking about peace. We just stay in our hotels and do our meditations, which is what we did. So in Iran, we went there for 2 months at the end of the Shah's reign in late 78, when there was a lot of violence going on. When we arrived at the airport and we were being taxied to the hotel, some men stopped us with machine guns and pointed the machine guns at us and said, "Your papers, please." So we showed them our passports, and they said, "Okay, we can go on." So we just did our meditations in the hotel for 2 months, and then we went home. During that 2-month period, the violence decreased by 78%. When we left, it went back up again. Same thing happened in Israel, in Lebanon, Nicaragua, Rhodesia, a number of other places around the world. I think the study that was presented to Yale was perhaps Israel. I'm not sure which country, but the study showed the same thing. It showed that as soon as the meditators came in, the war violence started decreasing. And Yale was very impressed. They said, wow, we can't find any flaws with the study, but it also violates our basic paradigm. I mean, come on. How could people just closing their eyes and sitting there make a soldier decide to put his gun down? That doesn't make any sense. So they said, if you go back and do this study again, using time series analysis and a number of advanced techniques to eliminate the results being achieved by manipulation or chance, we'll consider publishing it. And they thought that, that this would would cancel, the need to publish it. Well, the following year, the scientists came back and said, here, we did what you asked for, did the study again. We included time series analysis and these other parameters. Not only was the effect still there, it was even stronger. And it blew their minds. And they published the study in December of 1988. Since then, it was presented to the Pentagon. In 1993, we organized 4,000 people in Washington, D.C. We were aiming for 7,000, but, people have jobs and families, and they have to fund their own trip to get there and meditate together. So we could only get 4,000. It was announced in advance to the CIA, to the FBI, to the radio station, to the newspapers, to the White House, to the Capitol, to the mayor's office, to every point of influence and communication and media that you can imagine. It was announced, we are arriving on this date. It was sometime in the summer. It was like June something or something like that. When crime is usually at its peak, we are arriving on this date, and you will see a statistically significant decrease in every category of crime while we are here. That exactly did occur. And during, I think it was a couple of months, there were decreases of 30%, 40%, 50%, 60% in homicides and in this crime and in that crime. And even after you reduce the figure, you average all the statistics out and reduce the figure, and you eliminate, well, this one's doubtful and this one we don't know for sure. It came to an irreducible 22% overall reduction that was unexplainable by any other phenomenon. So it proved once again, in other words, these studies have been replicated and they've never been defeated. They've never been overturned. They've never been disproven. They've been replicatable, and they've been published in peer-reviewed journals. It was presented to the mayor's office to say, well, why don't we create a group, put some funding forward and create a group, and we can bring crime down permanently. In addition, it was presented to the Pentagon, we can bring world peace. What power on this planet is more powerful than tanks and bombs and guns and war? What power is more powerful? The unified field is what's more powerful. Super radiance is more powerful. It is invincible. There was a prophecy from the ancient Buddhist tradition called the Shambhala prophecy, and it said that around this time the whole world will come under the control of a big brother, unified under oppressive militaristic rule. At that time, the Shambhala forces will emerge with overwhelmingly superior technology, and in one short battle will remove Big Brother from his position of power, and this will usher in a golden age. So we are right in the midst of that happening in this period of time in history. We have now the power that is more powerful than force, than destruction, and that is the power of super radiance, which is generated through the human nervous system. It's not through mechanistic technology. It's not through machines. It's through the most advanced scientific laboratory on this earth. That's the human body, the human nervous system, with its chakras. This body, this nervous system, has the ability to tap into the infinite and generate it, act as a generator, as a transducer, as a radiator of that energy into the environment. And it benefits your neighbor. It benefits everyone around you.
Yeah, there was a couple things I was thinking about, while you were talking. I have practiced types of shamanism my whole life, like the more advanced stuff, the old stuff, and had private teachers and things like that. And it wasn't until I actually took myself to a place where there were I don't know, I can't remember. It was either 200 or 400 people there. And together we were learning a global practice, right? And so we had to do a lot of work clearing the energy fields, which were ourselves doing the practice in between, which had a lot of different kinds of movements to clear and change and shift the energy field, and we're doing them together. And it was based basically on water, and it was called the whale and dolphin practices. Beautiful. But anyway, yeah, so what happened after it was over, well, during it, I have a hard time kind of, we're in commercial, sorry about that. Hey, Taansen, just mute. And we're going to commercial. We'll be back at like either 1 or 6 after. Okay, so take a break.
freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hey there, it's Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, Consciousness, sorry, that's my YouTube channel. In case you guys want that, it's Consciousness of Economics and Urban Farm Project YouTube channel, but you are listening to the second hour of Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show, and I'm your host, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff. I have 2 editions every week. I have Wednesday noon Eastern Standard Time to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then also today's Saturday, which shows at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and you can click on the schedule, click Studio A, and then you can scroll down to the Bee with the Flower. Click on that. There's a back page. You'll find some information about the show, me, and links. Also, I'm doing a energy medicine healing course with tools. And that's going to be called Screening and Netting Energy Healing Course. It starts December 5th. You can go to coe-llc.com, scroll down the pages, and find the proper page for Screening and Netting course. And also, I believe coe-llc, there's a link on the back page of my show. Also, we're in huge transition and we're moving forward. And we need your help and support. So if you can give us a one-time donation, that would be great. And if you want to try to support us monthly, that's even better. And thank you for your support. Anyway, so we're in the second hour. And first hour, we talked about trusts. And then at the end of this second hour, we're going to be talking about debt elimination with our amazing guest, Taansen Fairmont, and then we're going to do that. So we're going to finish the conversation we were having at the second part of the hour. So I was saying, when I went to this dolphin, whale, water shamanism practice, group practice. And there was just a lot of stuff that happened during it, that were heightened, elevated kind of things. And so you couldn't trust anything that you actually saw because it was operating in these fields. So when I left after 3 days, and I headed back to Reno. And when I got into Reno, the reality had shifted so extremely that there were buildings that were gone, and there were even new buildings that were not there, when I left in the other field. It was so shocking to me. Like, I've done a lot of duty, stuff, but for it to radically alter the, city of Reno environment as extremely as it did actually kind of shocked me a bit. And so I had to call a friend of mine and ask her what had happened. And she said when she returned home, she noticed the same thing in her area. And so, when you increase that, people coming together theme, working in the same kind of direction energetically, you could remap a whole city, literally. Anyway, that was just kind of some thoughts I had about talking about some of the work that you've done that's the way that I can put it into context for myself. Let's just say that.
That's beautiful.
Any comments?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, that's shamanic work, any kind of energetic healing work, work in consciousness, prayer. There's Larry Dossey, you may be familiar with his work, where he documented the miraculous effects of prayer, and especially group prayer. For example, there's a fire in Southern California is burning down a neighborhood. It goes around one house. It just skips it altogether. It burns down all the other houses around it, but it skips that house. That's the house where the people were being prayed for. And, just story after story of these things. So we're dealing in an energy universe. It was finally harnessed as electricity in the 1800s. So today we're dealing with electricity and all of its work, but there's still much subtler energies. And the power increases at subtler levels. So collective thought, collective focus of awareness can change things and are changing things.
Yeah, I agree. And it's amazing, when you have experiences when it's a collective, when it goes from being, you working on it to you working as a collective energetically. It's interesting how the whole dynamic changes quite a bit.
Some listeners may be familiar with Art Bell and his previous work on the, the coast-to-coast radio. And he started experimenting. It was funny in the early 2000s with let's everybody get together on the radio and do a group focus, And so one time there was a drought in New Mexico, and he said, people really need rain there. Let's visualize rain. Well, they got rain all right, and it got so much rain that it flooded the area, and he got scared. He said, I think we better not fool around with this anymore. He was concerned about liability.
Well, that's it. My native teachers taught me that kind of stuff. You have to be really careful about, the things that you do. And, got it. Yeah. You don't want to have too much. Yeah. You don't want to cause another, Noah event flood. For sure.
I was in a seminar once. It was the Free Enterprise Forum. And a man had a heart attack in the middle of the seminar and was taken to the hospital. So right after lunch, the coordinator of the seminar said, well, all right, let's all of us take about 2 or 3 minutes and send some mental energy to this man. Let's send our blessings for his healing. Lo and behold, about an hour later, he showed up just fine. He was back in the seminar, feeling good, smiling. Turns out that the doctors noticed a sudden improvement in his heart rhythms and in his physical parameters and indications. They timed it, and they traced it back to the moment when it happened. It was exactly during those 3 minutes when we were focusing on him in the seminar.
Yeah, I have stories of growing up. So one of my grandmothers, my mom's mom, utilized her gifts and then kind of protected us, let's just say, in Pentecost, because of our family line. And my grandmother was known as this really amazing healer in the Pentecost church. So she was like the number one person that people would go to if they needed prayer. And she would go to the prayer room and she would literally not drink water, eat, and do prayer work until the desired outcome had happened. And so a lot of people had major life turnaround, especially in health and stuff like that, due to her giving her life, in the native way, they would be like pipe carriers, where they sit down and they do the prayers for everybody. That's their calling and their job. Once you've been, going through the ceremony of being a pipe carrier, it's your responsibility to make sure that we're talking about this on Wednesday with my friend Paul Martin. It's like, okay, you have to, slam down everything. You're like, get 10 requests at once. You got to sit down with that pipe, right, and get those prayers out. But I think that, some people are super good at prayer medicine. Some people are dynamic with it. I mean, everybody kind of has like their energy kind of what they're best at, but people that have the ability to pray and make changes, they're pretty powerful in their way.
Which brings us to the idea that we can create anything. We can have anything. We can be anything.
We love this.
We are the creators of our own reality. We are responsible for what happens to us. What we send out comes back to us. And if anybody says, no, it's not my fault. It's their fault. They did it to me. Well, what did you do in the past to send out the vibration that brought that back to you as a boomerang? That's what we have to look at. And that's where we have the good news that we are the controllers of our destiny. If we realize that we sent that vibration out, even in a past life, it's only coming back just like a bill comes back that you have to pay because you incurred that debt in the past. Well, if you know that you are the one who created that, then it gives you the power. It gives you the knowledge. It gives you the control of your destiny by knowing, oh my God, I'm the creator of my destiny. I own, the influences I send out. And if I send out only good influences from now on, it may take some time. It depends on how much karmic baggage you have. But it may take some time, and then you start turning it around. And the more good influences you send out, the more good come back. And then it just spirals upward. The secret, you're familiar with the secret. And then there's that, principle, where you put your attention, energy follows. What you put your attention on is what creates your reality. The more you put attention on a particular thing, the more that thing manifests. So the ultimate application of that is, what if you were to put attention on the source of attention?
Yeah, well, that's shamanism. You have the intention, but then now you have to hold the attention.
What is the source of intention or attention? What is the source of it?
No source of intention, on the lower end is a desired outcome or something you need.
All right, and what's the source of that? Where does that desire come from?
Your perception. Your perceptions.
And where does perception originate?
From behavior or things you're taught.
All right. So these are phenomena in one's environment, and everyone has a source of what they generate as far as actions, thoughts, and speech. What is the source of those actions and thoughts and speech?
You.
That's right. It comes from you. So where inside of you does it come from?
Well, I guess on the lower end, it would come from the person that you think you are, or that you've been trained to believe you are.
There you go. All right. Thought. What's in one's mind, one's belief about oneself, and where does that come from? What's the source of that? What's the origin of that?
Your development since you were born.
Right. There are all these books out there on the power of positive thinking. Very few of them talk about what's the source of thought. Where do thoughts come from? And thoughts carry energy, don't they? And they carry direction, they carry intelligence, and they seem to be endless. We have hundreds of them every day, thousands. Every day, constantly, incessantly, since birth. That's a lot of energy and it's a lot of intelligence. Where's all that coming from? Where's all that energy coming from? Where is all that intelligence coming from in these thoughts?
Well, a lot of it is, I'll call it predictive programming. I know that. But
where's the energy coming from within oneself? Programming would be coming maybe from the outside influences, but somehow Your thoughts are originating inside you, and they're coming with energy. Where's that coming from? What's the source of that?
Well, one thing in my life that I've learned personally, and maybe this is not the answer you're looking for, but is that I've had to work on my own records and stories of the thoughts in my mind, because I believe that they originated genetically as well, in order to change, have a different intention and hold a different attention.
True.
So quieting the mind down from all of the thoughts from the subconscious mind.
And so you're referring to what is called the ancient mind. And some enlightened masters teach that your thoughts are not your thoughts, because they're basically, like you say, genetic, they're ancestral, they come from generations, millennia of social programming. So you're all correct. All of your answers are correct. I'm just attempting to take you to the ultimate source.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. All of these
Ask
answers
me some more
are
questions.
correct. So if you take it to the whole, all right, you've got the entire society has a behavior pattern, a set of programmings, and so on that we inherited. And yes, much of our thinking came from that programming, that social programming. But where did it all originate? Where does all thought come from?
Well, in my beliefs, so I can only answer from my perception, two places. One I'll call the everything, which is what we're in. And the other one is what I call the no thing, the nothing, where that I've seen where I understand that we originated from.
Beautiful. That's a very nice way of describing it. The everything or the no thing. The unified field, which scientists have been finding generates virtual protons, virtual particles, virtual electrons, things they've been started stumbling out of their laboratories confounded since the 60s and 70s, that they're discovering to this day things that they can't explain, they can't even wrap proper theories around, because objects seem to come out of this invisible field and disappear back into it. The entire existence, the entire creation of universes originates out of this field. And the field is a kind of nothingness. And that's why in some circles it's called the void. But it is also conscious. So it's called the presence. Some traditions call it the I am presence. The natives call it the Great Spirit, the Nagwal. The indigenous people of New Zealand, the Maoris, they call it the Te Korte. The Christians call it Holy Spirit, which is an aspect of God. So every religion has a name for it. Every scientific tradition has a name for it. Even the atheists reluctantly have to recognize it. It's a state in which everything exists that is omnipresent. It's everywhere. It's inside your body. It's inside the desk, the chair, the room, the walls. It's inside the trees, inside the food. It's inside everything. It's neutral. It's neither good nor bad. However, at the interface with creation, the first thing that comes out of it is 100% harmless, 100% good, 100% nourishing. It's only when it descends down through a human nervous system and gets distorted by stress that it can become, destructive. It can become criminal. But originally, when you had a desire for freedom, a desire for wealth, a desire for pleasure, a desire for anything good, that desire originated in the unbounded ocean of consciousness. And that unbounded ocean of consciousness is the self. It is the self that all of us are. So enlightenment is a state where someone experiences. It is not just an intellectual understanding. It is an experience that there is no separate individual self, but there is an individuality that projects like a ray from a sun. So if you imagine a single sun, a great central sun, radiating infinite light, that great central sun sends infinite rays out, and you are one of those rays, and I am one of those rays. But we're not a separate entity, because we are that sun. We forgot, most of us, that we were, and we developed an amnesia. It's kind of like getting onto a ship and sailing out into the middle of the ocean and developing amnesia. You completely forgot where you sailed from and where you're sailing to.
And what you are doing, you may not even understand that you are sailing.
That too. All kinds of mental miasmas develop in the darkness, So yoga means union. So it means reconnecting, union. Ultimately, it doesn't just mean physical exercises. It means reuniting one's consciousness with Source, which actually we were never disconnected from, because if we were, we would cease to exist. But there came in between our focal point of awareness, our conscious awareness in the waking state, in between that and our Source, there came this kind of smoke screen, this smoke screen of thought pollution that kind of obscured our understanding of where we came from and who we are and where we're going. That smoke screen can be dissolved, and the way we dissolve it is by resting in pure consciousness, resting in samadhi, just taking time out every day to close the eyes and rest very, very, very deeply in a fourth state that is free of thought. It's beyond thought, beyond mental activity, and it's very rejuvenating. The heart rate slows down, the breathing rate slows down, the brain waves change. It's a separate physiological state from waking, dreaming, and sleeping. So deep sleep has an oxygen consumption reduction of about 8%. The dream state has an oxygen consumption reduction of about 4%. That is considered the parameter of metabolic rate. That's how the medical people measure metabolic rate. In the waking state, the standard is considered to be 0. Waking state, which I assume we're in right now, is considered the 0 standard. And from that, when you go into the dream state, it goes down about 4%. In deep sleep, 8%. In pure consciousness, the samadhi state, it goes down 16%, which means it's twice as deep sleep, but you're not asleep. You're fully awake. It's a very blissful state. So the body gets refreshed, the nervous system is regenerated. You feel, while you're in it, like, oh my God, this is so nice. I'd like to never come out of this. I'd like to stay in this forever. But then, your bladder fills up, or you have lunch, or you have an appointment, you got to go to work, you got to go shopping. Life happens. So you have to come out, but the mind would like to never come out. And in that peace, you have unbelievable serenity, unbelievable tranquility. You're not doing anything. And that's why a lot of the workaholics out there will say, it's just a waste of time. Well, guess what? That waste of time is making people more efficient in their work. One architect said that he was now getting done in 3 days what used to take 3 weeks, because he's making much less mistakes, he's more efficient, he has more energy. That so-called waste of time is now refreshing one's mind and heart, and one feels more harmonious, more happy, more loving, more enjoyable, and so one's conflicts decrease. How much money does that save? How much time does that save? If you could administer your organization and your affairs in business or in social service with no conflict, with no arguments, with no theft of other people's property, with no being a victim of theft from other thieves. If one could just have happiness and harmony in all relationships everywhere, imagine how much.
That's the native way.
Imagine
all my relations.
All my matakuyasan. Yeah.
Being in harmony and balance with all.
There you go. How much prosperity would that generate? How much trouble and headache and problem would it save? How many lawsuits would just disappear? How many medical problems in the hospitals would just not be there?
That's the big one. I mean, because that's kind of my field where I focus is health with people. And that's the big one. I mean, if you have health, then you really have everything. You have the highest level of prosperity and abundance that really can be obtained.
It starts with the deepest point in meditation where the heart fills up with a good feeling. That's where it starts. The feeling level controls the mental level, not the other way around. The mental level just calculates and distributes information, but the heart, the feeling area, the feeling capacity, is the area where either problems begin or solutions begin. So when one goes into pure consciousness, the first thing that automatically happens, and this is without any intention, there's no need for any intention. There's no need to go in there and think, okay, I've got to work, I've got to focus, I've got to concentrate. No. If you're going into pure consciousness, you're not concentrating, you're not contemplating, you're not working. You're not repeating anything, you're not holding an intention, you're releasing all of that, you're letting go, you're relaxing, you're just allowing the mind to rest in bliss.
In the no thing.
In the no thing. For a period of time.
Do nothing.
It doesn't mean
find the no thing.
It doesn't mean that you are oblivious. It doesn't mean that you are irresponsible or unaware. It doesn't mean that you're in a trance. In fact, you're more aware. So, while you're in this, if someone were to say your name, Bridgette, you better come out. The house is burning down. You could respond. You could respond reluctantly, but you could come out. Okay? So you hear the sounds in the environment. You're conscious, you're alert, and you could respond if you wanted to. And you're aware vaguely of the time. It does seem miraculously like 20 or 30 minutes went by in what seemed like 5 minutes. But, you can have a very soft alarm or, you kind of open your eye just a little bit, to see the clock, You just sort of, take a glance at it. So you're aware of the time and you're not, disconnected from outer reality. It's just that you're taking a brief vacation from it. And that vacation takes you, as you call it, the no thing, takes you out of the mind. So when people tell you, oh man, they tell me, you're out of your mind, I say, thank you. Everyone should go out of their mind at least twice a day. It's healthy. It's necessary. And guess what? Sanity increases.
Yeah, I mean, you just take a break.
Give the mind a break.
Yeah, take a life coffee conscious break. Instead of coffee break, take that conscious break.
Conscious break. There you go. They're starting to have quiet time in some schools, and the children's grades are going up. They're happier. They get along with each other better. And it works for adults. It works for geniuses and highly evolved yogis as well as retarded people. It works for prisoners. It works for highly stressed people. It works for any kind of human being on this planet. As long as you have a nervous system and you can think a thought, you can go into the source of thought.
Yeah. One of my favorite conscious timeouts is I like to put a yoga mat down in wherever I have room. And then I like to just lay on it and corpse.
There you go.
Sometimes I really like to do it outside and then just lay there in the sunlight And then sometimes I like to do like long twists, body twists, yoga twists for long periods of time, kind of in that state.
There are many, many, many supportive practices like this.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing, too, is that, I try to do, just from personal experience with people, I try to do a lot of the Sangha, the hardcore sitting up methods of Buddhism, Sangha, where you sit and you can only, move your body into two positions sitting, lotus and then this other one. And you have to have like extreme silence in the group. And it was very tough on me. And I'm glad that I didn't give up on, finding different kinds of, for listeners out there, to find different processes that work for me. I mean, obviously, if you have lots of back pain, you may have to figure out what's a comfortable position for yourself, lying down or sitting up, or however that's going to work, or a combination, to be able to get your body to relax enough that you can kind of let go of what's going on around you. And it's also good technique for pain management, just so people know out there.
The practices of Zen and the practices of Vipassana have been very, very beneficial. I will share a secret with you. There's a word called Dhyan, D-H-Y-A-N, that's from the Himalayas. It means pure consciousness. When it came to China, they pronounced it Chan. And when it came to Japan, they called it Zen, but it's the same word, Dhyan, Chan, Zen. That's where that word came from. And down through the ages, it got distorted. The practice became distorted, effort crept in, it came to be seen as a hard discipline, and therefore the results decreased. When something is hard and something is difficult, it typically means that not as much juice from pure consciousness is flowing, and one needs more time and more determination to get to the ultimate benefit. What the masters originally taught in the ancient golden ages, and what is coming back now, is the wisdom of effortlessness and the wisdom of comfort. It is pretty advantageous to be sitting up, not in the laying down position, because laying down one tends to get sleepy or dull. But in sitting up, doesn't have to be without a backrest. If one enjoys that, that's fine. But if one likes to have a backrest, the body should be comfortable. That is entirely important. It doesn't have to be that you have to strain and struggle to get into samadhi. If the body is comfortable and the spine is fairly erect, then there can be a success. And that success can be of the mind being free and not distracted by extreme temperatures, extreme diets. So one doesn't have to be, fasting and going days and days and days unless one's enjoying that. But if it's not something that, one wants to do, it's not required. There's some wisdom from both the Buddhist and the Krishna traditions saying, don't go to extremes. Take the middle way. Don't be too hot or too cold. Don't have too much sleep or too little sleep. Don't have too much food or too little food. Take the middle way. Make the body comfortable. And then once one is in the meditation, let go and allow. It was found when Maharishi first came to Malaysia, there was a Zen Buddhist priest who tried his Himalayan transcendental meditation and said, wow. He said, I got more out of this in one day than I did in 20 years of Zen meditation. Because the Zen and many of the Buddhist traditions got away from the original Buddha teachings, which was effortlessness. Now, Vipassana is the same as TM, except that Vipassana doesn't use a mantra. And their idea is sit and watch the breathing, watch the thoughts. Like you're sitting by a river and you're watching things float down the river. Because by the act of watching, you are identifying with the witness. And eventually, after enough practice, you will be so identified with the witness that everything in life becomes phenomena, and you're centered in awareness. I too, though, I have to admit, I won't speak for everyone, but I'll speak for myself, found that practice was kind of boring. And the people who do it admit that it's boring in the beginning. They'll tell you, well, you have to stick with it for weeks, months, years, and eventually the juice will come, What I found with TM is that if you use these charming vibrations, these sounds, they're not mantras that have meanings, and they're not mantras that you repeat or that you concentrate on. They're mantras that are called bija, means they're seed syllables. They're just vibrations, like buzz. It's just a vibration. It's just a sound. And they're particularly chosen for their ability to invert attention from outward to inward. So the mind follows the path of increasing charm. It follows the path to increasing happiness. It follows that charming sound, that vibration, and it floats on it. And it doesn't concentrate on it. It doesn't repeat it. So there's no repetition, meaning that you're just letting the vibration float in the mind and then letting go. Believe it or not, as simple as that sounds, it is extremely powerful. Very, very powerful. It works. And it works for everybody. It works without skill. It works without talent. It doesn't depend on ability. It doesn't depend upon pre-existing, practice of any kind. So one need not worry, oh, I don't know if that would work for me. A lot of people say, oh, I could never do that. I could never blank my mind of thoughts. That is putting the cart before the horse. There is no such prerequisite. The mind will go into its center of the cyclone, away from the thoughts, automatically and effortlessly when it is given that vibration to follow effortlessly, and it will follow it all the way to source because its nature is to go to fields of greater happiness and satisfaction. That's the nature of the mind. It doesn't have to be forced to go there. It's already the nature of the mind. So why should it have to be disciplined? Why should it have to be forced to go to where it already wants to go? The way just has to be opened. And that's what the genius of this technique does.
Yeah, just another thing too is like sometimes I just have to remind myself, like say it's a crazy day and I forgot to take care of myself or have a checkout or, a little conscious checkout. And sometimes I have to remind myself to do it. Just take a time out. Sometimes you just need a little time out just to take a few breaths, just kind of get yourself centered, and it'll make a huge difference in your life. Huge.
That's the only place where discipline maybe comes in, is to just, you're in the middle of your work and you're like, time for a break, for meditation, to just have the discipline to say, okay, I'm changing gears, putting everything aside, turn the phone off, put everything, all the disturbances away, and take your time out. And if you are successful, you're going to look forward to it. If you're not looking forward to it, something's wrong. It's got to be delivering that joy, that happiness, that enjoyment, that satisfaction.
Peace.
So that the peace, you look forward to it.
You do, and you get better at reminding yourself to do it. Sometimes in the beginning you keep forgetting about it, but you just keep bringing yourself back every day and try again. Just going to try it again. Make sure it's on the list of my list of things that I should do, especially the list for myself, so that I'm a better human and I'm, more awake and conscious and connected, kind of a thing. But yeah. Okay. So we only have like 15 minutes probably of the show. I know it goes by really fast. So I was just going to have you talk about debt elimination, which I think is kind of a good ending, because some people are struggling, with so much debt that it keeps you from focusing in on anything else, the stress of it. And last time we talked to you, you had a really good approach to it. You said, if you have credit card or loans or debt or whatever you have and it's working for you, you're using it to build in a good way, then great. good on you. But if your debt is taking you down, keeping you from eating, keeping you in high stress, pushing you towards not having a place to live, or some of the other things that debt burden can cause, that that maybe you want to attempt to do something about it. So do you want to talk to us about your debt elimination programs?
Well, at the website, takeanewroad.com, you will find the debt elimination section, and you will find the trust section. And they each have ebooks. I highly encourage everyone to take a few minutes and read the ebooks. The debt elimination, it's about 50 pages. It's got pictures. It's entertaining. The trust is about 60 pages. It's also got pictures. And these ebooks will show how we justify feeling that perhaps we have the number one debt elimination system in America. It has basically a 100% success rate, meaning everyone who followed it completely and did not give up and followed its instructions has had success with it. And the success is in the fact that the debt collectors go away. Sometimes a written confirmation comes. Most of the time, we call them pretender lenders, will go away silently, like a snake that went back under its rock, and they won't issue anything in writing. And that's fine too, because basically it was phony and it was bogus in the first place. It's not required, but it is recommended to read the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. I know you've read it, yes, Bridgette?
Yes, I've read excerpts from it, but I've also been involved with this kind of law for a long time, too.
Yes, yes. So many of your listeners are familiar with the fact that we have a debt-based money system, where the so-called U.S. dollar is a promissory note. It is a debt instrument. It is not real money, and it isn't even backed by real money. And that was instituted in 1913 with the passage of the Federal Reserve Act. A similar system exists in pretty much every country in the world. Therefore, when $10,000 shows up on your Visa or your MasterCard or your Discover card or American Express, that money was created by computer entries. And nothing was loaned out of any account anywhere. So there is no institution whose balances went down by that much. But they pretend that they would be financially harmed if you don't pay it back. And they police it until and unless they are confronted with the truth. And that's what our system gives you. It gives you a template letter. If you want to send this letter to your pretender lender, it will lead to the cancellation of the debt legally. So, as Bridgette said, if you're wanting to increase your credit score and you're not suffering from your debt load and you want to play the game because you know it's funny money, but you want to build it up because you want to invest in a business, we would call that good debt. So you're playing the game because you want to access capital. We have a capitalist system. That's the positive side of it. Utilize that capital to invest in good things and hopefully increase it, multiply it. That's what creates prosperity. But like Bridgette said, if you're suffering because you have excessive debt due to you lost your job, you had a medical problem, some problems happen in your life with your children, with your relatives, anything occurred that caused you to go into debt involuntarily, and it was not to increase prosperity, it was just out of sheer survival, and now it's become an enslaving influence. It's a burden around your shoulders, and it's difficult to get out of it, and you're struggling under the weight of it, and you're considering bankruptcy. Instead of bankruptcy, utilize the Liberty Debt Elimination System. Get the system for $450 one time. That's about equal to a couple of monthly payments on the average. You can immediately stop making those monthly payments So you have your value back right there, and then just start sending the letters. So there's instructions that come with it, and we also offer customer service. We don't do the system for you, but we also do hold your hand through the process because we know it's intimidating, and so we're here for everyone. We provide backup support.
I have a question for you that has come out of our public chat room. They want to know, what about student loans and mortgages that are sold to different companies over and over again?
We can cancel the student loans exactly the same as we cancel credit card debt. By the way, this only applies to debts issued in the United States, because the system, even though the same scam is being run worldwide, you would need in another country to change the laws that are cited in the letters. So this is for debts, not necessarily people. You could be from Canada. If you have a U.S. debt, then it'll apply to that. So it has to originate from a U.S. institution. Student loans, we've been canceling with the exact same success as credit card debt. Any unsecured loan, any signature loan, we can cancel. Mortgages, on the other hand, are what are called secured debts, and we do not do that at Brilliance and Commerce. However, we can outsource that. We can refer you to some of the most successful people who are assisting people with that. Nobody we know of has a 100% success rate with that, but we know those who have closer to 100%, and it is expensive to get that success because it takes exactly the right forensic, accounting and paper trail and exactly the right techniques in court and so forth. It can cost $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 before you're said and done. It can be paid in installments, over time, because it's a process that takes 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, But everyone who has had success with that through the people that we refer people to are still in their homes, and they've not been paying a mortgage. But again, we don't do that because that requires a lot more expertise and a lot more, because that market, even though they're running the same scam, they police that. International crime syndicate polices that with a lot more force. Whereas the credit card debts and student loan debts, we have a lot more consumer protection laws protecting us.
I just want to toss this out there too, is that, now it just kind of like went out of my mind. Oh no, I lost it. Sorry. Keep going. But what I was going to say is that you have legal people that you consult with, and that you, if people emailed you about exactly what they needed, which is on the website, they could get in contact with the direction that they needed to go, correct?
Right. Okay. So we recommend subscribing to the newsletter. Go to takeanewroad.com, subscribe to the newsletter, read over the debt elimination material, click on legal help. You can read through that section. Anything else on the site that interests you, read through it. If your questions are not answered in the frequently asked questions, click on Contact Us and submit a ticket, and we'll be very happy to help.
Yeah, so you can ask them a lot of stuff about, they'll try to figure out where you belong and where you need to go and where you need to look. And they're good to go. They're going to try to help you the best they can with, you relieving your stress and the fake money racket. I was going to say, I love Jordan Maxwell. He said this on the last show that he was on, and he said, I work for a bill. That's what they give me in exchange for my labor, is a bill. And then I take my bill to pay my bills with my bill. And so there's never any money.
Right.
That is exchanging hands. It's all debt instruments, including your dollar bill that you hold in your hand is a bill.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I love that. It was
you have to hand it to the bankers for their cleverness. even if it was evil genius, but just the cleverness with which they put this whole facade together.
Okay, so we have a question, another question. We're getting some questions here today.
All right.
Okay, and we have 6 minutes. So this is from our public feed. How do you buy property, land, or a home and avoid annual taxes, a trust?
That's a very good question. And to avoid property taxes, you would need to obtain a allodial title, the original land patent, or perhaps in some cases, if you set it up as a spiritual organization or a scientific institute, there are certain exemptions there. But generally, that is not something that we provide. We do not specialize in that because that area has mixed success, actually fairly low success rates. We tend to specialize only in things that have 100% success rates or very close to it.
So, but once they get these documents, then they can be applied to the trust, right?
Yes, and a property can be put into the trust, but that does not prevent property taxes or mortgages from having to be paid. Other actions would have to be taken for that.
What taxes does a trust cover?
Income tax, mainly. It is an exception to the requirements to filing and paying income tax.
Okay, good. Okay, so we've got like 4 minutes till we're at the end here, and so I just want to say, thanks everybody for listening to the Saturday edition of Caring Stones Digging Holes, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you guys have learned a lot from our guests today. Also, we're making a transition, so please make sure to go to support us on the website, revolutionradiofreedomslips.com. We could really use your help right now. If you want to contact me, you can hit schedule on the revolutionradiofreedomslips.com website. Scroll down Studio A, see the bee and the flower, click on that back page. Should be lots of places where you can contact me. If you have any questions about anything, and then so did you have anything left to add in the last 3 minutes? I hope that you're going to come back in 2000. Do you want to come back on in 2020?
I would enjoy that. Thank you. If everybody else would like it. In the last 3 minutes, I would just say go to Take a New Road, TAKEANEWROAD.com, and communicate with us. Read through our materials, get in touch, gift yourself with the greatest conclusion of this decade with the programs we have. And if you have questions that aren't already answered there, open up a ticket and send it to us or call us.
Yeah, and maybe, maybe this Christmas, give your family a big gift with the debt elimination.
Yeah,
and get that trust done, and have your family start down the road. So in 2020, you have relief, and you don't have to struggle as hard, and you don't have to worry as much. Worry about the things that are more important than fake money system.
We believe we have the best, and we also invite everyone, because we're open-minded, please tell us if you believe you have something that accomplishes what we're doing in a better way. We welcome ideas.
Yeah, that's the one thing I really love about you is that, you're open. Let's have a conversation, about what's going on and what's happening.
We entertain all new ideas royally, for one of them may be the king.
So the other thing too, like you said on the last show, that once you buy the debt elimination, like you get all the documents forever, and that when you guys do find new information and new documents, that you put them up there and you provide them.
Yes, we're always improving it. Every year we're improving it. We usually come out with a new edition, and based on experience, based on what the courts are saying, based on what the banks are doing, we keep refining it, making it more powerful.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll definitely have you back on in 2020 and have some other enlightening conversation, especially, as we move towards this transition. It's good to have, guests on that have made the transition, to kind of help the other people not to be so scared and so afraid and feel so hopeless and powerless, so that we can do this together. No.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
We'll see everybody again on Wednesday, noon Eastern Standard Time. The Bee with the Flower, Carrying Stones and Digging Holes. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, everybody.
Blessings.
Bye.